There's just nothing left.
The statistics out there is about 50,000 hectares within our range have been destroyed.
We lost a lot of things that day, but we didn't lose each other.
In the bleak, barren, blackened landscape of southern New South Wales, there's a race on. A frantic dash against time and the elements.
There's a race on at the present moment. I think they'll last about another maybe 6 months, and then by that time the blue stay and the rot will get in too much.
In the forest, there's the ceaseless roar of machinery and the thud of falling trees.
So right now it's a real race against the clock to see how much of that timber can be salvaged. We've got crews working 24/7 to get as much of that pine into the sawmills as possible, but there's more than will be able to be gathered in, unfortunately.
In the sawmills, the saw blades buzz around the clock.
Absolutely, yeah. They talk about between 9 months and a year that we've got for the log that's burnt and getting it off the stump and into the mill and processed. And then after that, we're sort of in uncharted territory really, and the product is not going to be good enough to use.
These pine plantations were killed by last summer's devastating bushfires. The Tumbarumba Tumut region is the green triangle of New South Wales, but vast swathes of green are now black.
It really is a story that Australians need to hear, because we have had a major hit to what is really one of our major regional industries in Australia. That's the timber industries.
It's estimated that more than 50,000 hectares of softwood plantation has been destroyed on these southwest slopes, and salvaging these burnt logs is exceptionally hard on both men and machinery.
How you, Tom?
Good, mate, good. How's this playing, mate?
Hey, good, real good.
Yeah, right, that's good.
Pine Timber's Tumbarumba Sawmill, one of the largest in the Southern Hemisphere, directly employs 230 and just as many indirectly.
In rough terms, we do about 700,000 cube a year, or just less than that. If you want to put it into a nice simple number, it's around about 7,500 logs a day that goes through the plant. If we took all of the finished product that we've got, that you can see behind us here, if we put that on a daily basis that we produce, we could get from here to Sydney or Melbourne if you line it up piece by piece.
That's about 500 kilometres in length. The timber for 1 in every 4 houses in New South Wales comes from here. Every part of the log is utilised. Even the sawdust is used to power the furnaces. About a quarter of each big log goes to high-grade structural timber. Another quarter to wood chips for making paper. Black ash is causing havoc.
The actual cutting of the log has been the difficult bit, and so we have to make sure it's extremely clean, that we're not getting any chip with contamination in it when it goes off to Visi, for example. And that's very hard on a gear because we have to run it really hard. We have to deal with a lot of dust that comes with the burnt log, so we have to use a lot of water to suppress that dust, and that often causes us other issues that the plant's just not designed to deal with.
In the midst of winter, salvage crews also confront big challenges. Wet conditions make it unsafe to harvest trees on slopes. Log trucks haul their loads on muddy roads. It's a world away from January's terrifying inferno.
Sparked up. It's about 1 kilometre away. Holy.
The place was like Armageddon, you know. It was just dark and gloomy. The sun was just a little red ball in the sky, you know, because there was so much smoke. It was really tough, really hard.
It's huge. Kilometres high. That's making its own weather.
It was something you can't explain and imagine, you know, the cloud of smoke and black fire, and in the morning when we woke up and looked out at it, you were scared. You know, people were scared, and we were kilometres away from it, 10 kilometres away from the first one I saw, and we were scared. You know, it was terrifying.
Fire crews stopped it on the edge of town.
And then the fire went over the Mount Tumbarumba over there, and I've got photographs of it going up over there, and I watched it hit the telephone tower, and it just blew up, you know.
There's just nothing left. Yeah, I don't think the tractor's going to go again. But on the upside, there's a wallaby having a rest under the veranda, and Rosella's drinking out of the bucket. All's good.
Amongst the carnage were homes, infrastructure, livelihoods and livestock.
My best friend's parents own a property on the other side of Tumbarumba. They lost hundreds of heads of cattle and sheep, you know, animals walking out of their hooves that were burnt. It was horrific, it was heartbreaking, the stench of death was horrific.
So too the toll on plantations and native forests.
The statistics out there is about 50,000 hectares within our range have been destroyed by the fire. And for us, we're looking forward to, that's about 40% of our available log going forward. So it's a substantial impact to us in the future.
It takes up to 30 years to grow a pine log big enough for structural use. Much of the charred forest is too young, but it must be cleared and replanted. For sawmills, it's akin to getting early access to their superannuation.
That would have been the raw materials that would have gone into those manufacturing plants in places like Bombala and Tumut and Tumbarumba, and that's going to have a long-term impact on those communities.
In the native forest industry, there might be, 60 to 80 years before we see some of these forests back to the way they were.
Generations of Billy Joe Brown's family have worked in the timber industry. As a forester, she must confront the trauma of bushfire every day.
We certainly haven't been able to forget about the fires. This is our everyday. There is times when you walk around and you kick a burnt log and you probably have a silent tear roll down your cheek. I know I cried about a cockatoo that fell out of a burnt tree one time, and I didn't cry at my parents' house when it burnt. I did kick a brick and swear, but I didn't cry. But coming out the bush that afternoon and seeing a burnt cockatoo just broke me.
Today she's assessing one of the countless burnt bridges across the region. Millions of dollars in damage that will take years to repair. The speed of the fire caught everyone by surprise, with near fatal results.
So my uncle, for some reason, woke up at 5 and realised he had some hunch that he needed to go to Mark, my father. So Pete went over to Mark and they tried to fight it as much as they could, and they just knew they were losing it. So I don't know, the skin of their teeth, they're still here. Bit of good luck. So they've lost everything, the house, we lost some stock, all the sheds, all the materials. We lost a lot of forests out, so we lost personal possessions and professional ones. This was our sanctuary, I guess, as native forest staff. So we lost a lot of things that day, but we didn't lose each other.
But for a timber town like Tumbarumba, there'll be an economic impact from the loss of surrounding forests.
We'll have to do everything we can to ensure that as many jobs as possible remain in those communities, and that the timber mills and other processing plants continue to operate as efficiently as they can with a reduced volume. But the implications are coming because we can't grow trees overnight.
The flow-on effect from this mill is quite dramatic. And you've been into town this morning, you would have seen it's a bustling town, and we're very much part of that contribution to that bustling town and being part of this town.
Between here and neighbouring Tumut, 3 major timber firms employ 750 people, with an estimated economic flow-on to 5,000 jobs, worth about $2 billion annually to the region's economy. Privately owned Hind Timber has invested several $100 million into this mill. To safeguard its future and to run at full capacity, it'll need to source logs from further afield. Getting them here will cost about $10 million a year.
And the only way we're going to do that is getting government freight subsidies for us to bring timber to the mill.
The federal government's recent $600 million bushfire recovery package doesn't include freight subsidies.
We're really fighting to survive, and we want to survive, and it's good for us as a business, of course, but it's also really good for this community.
And there's a far bigger challenge facing not only this region, but Australia's entire softwood industry. There's not enough timber to meet our future needs. Past governments in past decades had aimed to have 3 million hectares of plantation timber by 2020. We are 1 million short.
So it really is timely, I think, to have a conversation about how Australia needs to grow its forest industries, what it can do, where it should do that, what are the right trees in the right place at the right scale that are going to allow that to happen, intersect with farmers and with the natural environment in a way that is sustainable.
This is part of the answer. In eastern Victoria, an army of workers spends the winter months propagating pine seedlings. This is Hancock's Victorian nursery, where cuttings are taken from 250,000 mother trees. All of them have specially selected traits: disease resistance, fast growth rates, high fertility, hardiness and so on. The cuttings take root and get some kind care in a vast greenhouse. These are next year's pine seedlings. More than 10 million are produced here each year, then dispatched for planting throughout Victoria. Replanting is in full swing in the bushfire-hit regions as well. Fire has also forged stronger bonds.
So proud of these people because they're just so resilient. They keep going on, and you ask, do you need anything? Can I help you? No, mate, are you right? Everyone, and it's still today, 6 months on, everyone's, how are you going? And they genuinely ask, how are you going? So yeah, just so proud of our community.
And from the fire-scarred landscape, new life is emerging.
We've still got black logs, but it's good to see the orchids coming through, the baby ash coming through. We've got kookaburras laughing at us when we get out of the car, and animals, various animals, emus still getting around, echidnas, so yeah, it's good to see. We can learn a lot from nature, actually.